Hey, listen, we're all in with TCU women's basketball right now. Our number 6 Horned Frogs just swept the regular season and conference tournament championship, beat Baylor 3 times after going 35 years between victories over that team. So,
What?
yeah, Fort Worth is really into collegiate women's basketball right now. It's really exciting.
They've played Baylor, maybe not twice every year for 35 years, but a bunch of times, I'm
A
sure. And
bunch of
they never
times.
won any of those games. I know Baylor's been great in women's basketball recently, but
Yeah, it is.
35 years?
There was a pretty good gap. So Baylor's been pretty successful over about the last 2 decades. And then there was a gap where they were not in the same conference for about 10 or 15 years. And back in the Southwest Conference days, TCU hadn't won. I mean, I think it'd been since the early 80s. So yeah, it was a big deal to get that first one. It was a lot of fun to get the next two.
Wow. Beat them in the conference tournament. Okay. What's the matchup for round one? Well, I
Uh,
guess.
we'll We'll find out next Sunday. Yeah. So
Yeah.
TCU women's tournament, you host the first 2 games. So the women TCU will be having March Madness in Fort Worth in a couple of weeks. And like I said, Haley Van Lith is awesome. Madison Connor might be the best pure shooter, men's or women's basketball. So it's been a really fun team to watch. Mark Campbell has taken a team that was 1-17 in conference 2 years ago to 30-3, 31-3 now overall this season, and number 6 in the country. So it's pretty cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the
Football,
roller
yeah.
coaster.
The hot seat is up for every coach in Fort Worth, including Sonny Dykes, after how quickly Mark Campbell turned things around. So yeah, this is a big spring for TCU football for sure.
Yeah, and so just to take everybody back, of course, it was 5-7 before the national championship game run to 13-2, and then back down to 5-7, and then a
Mhm.
nice little bounce back at 9-4 with a bowl victory. Although I don't know who wanted to see TCU play Louisiana, but
Yeah.
anyway, 9-4, and here we are with. I checked a few things out. 30 additions to the roster. Now I know that we've got 30 in the class of 2025. That was ranked number 21, at least according to one service here. So I went through the transfers, didn't see anything necessarily of note that most people would catch, but
Mhm.
who are the guys that stand out to you in regards to who TCU fans are looking forward to seeing that has shown up this year?
Yeah, there's not a lot in the transfer portal. I think it's really interesting as you see coaches trying to figure out what strategy works for them. TCU certainly willing to spend in NIL. They don't have the unlimited budgets some of these blue blood organizations, or even Texas Tech right now, who has Cody Campbell just printing money to sign guys out of the portal. And I think what Sonny Dykes learned from that 5-7 season is bringing in talent is important, but bringing in fit and leadership and culture is equally as important in a sport like football. And so after taking a ton of portals and going 5-7, they kind of looked more to fill specific needs to get to that 9 wins a season ago. And this year they really built in their high school class. So you're going to see a couple of JUCO guys. They got Kavion Barnes from UTSA at running back, which, if he can revert to his freshman year form, could be a great pickup, but he really struggled a season ago. And then the biggest one that they get back is Cade Bennett on the offensive line, who he was a transfer from San Diego State that sat out the entirety of last season. But him coming back in to solidify the line could really help. What you're going to see is some true freshmen that might be able to contribute right away. The biggest of whom might be Chad Woodfork on the defensive line. There's areas to compete, and that kid does not look anything like a 17 or 18-year-old as an early enrollee. And every single high school signee enrolled early from that December signing period. So I think that you might see some freshmen contribute. They've got a running back who looks like he's going to be really good. He could get some run right away as well. But really, what this is about is guys coming back, the offensive line solidifying, and Josh Hoover going through spring ball as the starter for the first time in his history at TCU.
Yeah, so let's get to Josh Hoover's development. Pretty pleased with his performance last year, and what would be the next steps of progress for him?
TCU started really slow a season ago and finished 5-1, plus the bowl win to get six out of their last 7 games, and that was really the difference in that record. But what we saw during TCU's early season struggles, the losses to UCF and Houston especially, was just not taking care of the ball. Hoover's had a great penchant for making like plays at the right moment, but did get a little bit sloppy kind of early in the season. And so if he can take care of the football and make sure that he is getting the ball to I'm sorry, I think we might be having something just going on over the fire drill there. But what he needs to do is develop chemistry with Eric McAllister, Jordan Dwyer, who's probably the biggest name transfer. I haven't gotten to him yet. Out of Idaho at wide receiver, but he loses Jack Besh, he loses Savion Williams, he loses his security blanket as well. And his three top receivers are all gone. So he's going to have to develop new chemistry with those new guys, and find ways to make plays, in big moments, because the running game is going to be a giant question mark going into 2025, just like it was going into 2024. And Cam Cook, who was your opening day starter a season ago, also is gone, left via the transfer portal. So Hoover's just got to be smart with the football. He's got to develop. He put up huge numbers. But he's going to have to find ways to do it without, Besh, Savion Williams, and, another complement of really veteran guys that he had this last year.
Everything good there, Melissa? Fire drill.
Yeah.
You don't have to run 50 exits or anything.
No, I think it was just a drill. So I'm sorry, I did not anticipate that happening, but I'm still at work, and these are the things that happen at schools. You just never know.
No doubt. Appreciate you being here. This is Melissa Triebwasser. I made mention a few minutes ago when I was setting everybody up for you jumping on here, as Melissa has joined us probably as long as anybody. She's right near the top of the list. It's been a long, long time, way over 10 years.
Yeah.
And you can catch Melissa at Frogs Insider. That's the podcast for Dave Campbell's college football and Dave Campbell's Texas football. So besides following Melissa on X/Twitter, and you got the handle right there, the Coach Melissa, maybe the best way to find you and everything else going on related.
Yeah, absolutely. There, the YouTube channel, social media, Instagram as well, at Frogs Insider. You'll see a lot of the photos and stuff that we post. We post all our press conferences and interviews that we do with players and coaches. Those are all available on our YouTube channel. And of course, Twitter is definitely the easiest way to get my hot sports takes and my soon to be, I'm sure, serious complaining about TCU football if they don't look like they're going to win, 11 games on day one of spring ball.
There you go. I remember the Stanford win right out of the gate on a Friday night, and then a curious loss against Houston that I didn't quite understand or see.
Neither did I.
Yeah, that one. And so, I saw the team play 5 or 6 times during the year, but like you mentioned, at 9-4, and because of the mad dash at the end at 6-1, it was one of those teams that I think a lot of people wrote off, didn't pay attention to nationally, and then maybe got surprised that, this team went 9-4. So taking that into consideration and all the additions and subtractions during the offseason, are TCU fans, more importantly, you, pretty comfortable where the program is?
Gosh, no, absolutely not. I think if you look at TCU had that magical run in 2022, but if you look at the last decade, it's been a lot of up and down. You mentioned roller coaster at the beginning of the show, and I think that absolutely describes it. And I think what TCU fans want to find, especially after realignment and in a Big 12 I don't think I'm blowing anyone's mind if I say it's pretty soft conference right now. There's not a standout team. There's not a blue blood. There's not a team you expect to win every year. TCU fans, and myself included, feel like TCU should be one of those teams that establishes itself as the flag bearer for the state and for the conference as a whole. I think Arizona State's got something really great working with Kenny Dillingham. Oklahoma State has got a lot to prove this offseason. But historically, they should be one of the elite teams in the league. But TCU has no excuse to not be contending nearly annually for a spot in the Big 12 Conference Championship game. If you look at location, if you look at resources, if you look at facilities, if you look at talent, they should be right there. And so last year, even though they won 9 games, it felt like a soft 9 wins. I think they only beat one team that was bowl eligible over the course of the season. The loss to Houston, like you mentioned, was relatively inexcusable, I would say. And then blowing a giant lead against UCF in the third quarter and losing that game. You take those two and turn them around, you're looking at a completely different season for the Horned Frogs. So this year is really, I don't want to say that Sonny Dykes is going into the season with a hot seat, but they can't afford to start slow out of the gate. They're going to open at UNC. They're going to be just like it was with Deion Sanders a couple of years ago. TCU is going to be the first team that faces Bill Belichick as a collegiate coach. And so that obviously is an opportunity to make a statement, to look prepared. It'll be a tough game, but I think that TCU is much more talented than what UNC is going to have this first year of Belichick's reign. So they've got to play good there. They have SMU. They got just absolutely blown out in Dallas last year. This is the last time the Iron Skillet game is on the schedule for the foreseeable future. You have to hold court and hold serve at home and kind of reestablish yourself as the football team in the Metroplex. So there's a lot of pressure. The schedule is more difficult on paper than it was a season ago, but it's certainly not one that should keep TCU from being a serious contender for a Big 12 championship. So my expectations are tempered. I have a lot of questions about the offensive line in the run game, but with Josh Hoover coming back, the most experienced signal caller in the conference, at least returning signal caller in the conference, you would expect the offense to be good. And Andy Avalos really had the defense cooking in the last half of the season. So if they continue to play on the trajectory they finished the year on, there's no reason that TCU should not be a 10-win team. That being said, we've got to see Sonny Dykes do it and do it for an entire season, which he's really only done once.
Melissa, this is just one of the reasons why I love having you on, because most people, their team's about here and they talk them up to about here. And you're just, hey, 9-4. It was kind of soft. Look at it.
I'm a TCU fan. I have been hurt for a quarter of a century at this point in athletics. So I want to be realistic. Like I think this team could be really, really good. But I don't know if really, really good is going to translate into, a Big 12 championship. The 2022 season, a lot of great things happened, but you had a generational talent in Max Duggan, who was, I would argue, among the most elite winners I've ever seen in college football. Not the best quarterback I've ever seen, and never would be considered such, but just had this special will. And it was a really special locker room. We saw the locker room completely fall apart the season after. And I think last year you started to see guys like Josh Hoover step into those leadership roles, and Cooper McDonald and Bud Clark coming back is massive for the defense. He's such a wonderful leader and such a great personality. But Sonny has been so much more particular in the types of players and people he's bringing in, that he really is focusing on culture. And I think that he's probably learned that from watching guys like Kirk Saarloos with baseball, and Eric Bell with TCU women's soccer, and Mark Campbell with TCU women's basketball, and saying you can take big swings in the portal, but they have to be the right type of people that want to play together and can put their ego aside for the betterment of the team. Really, really hard to do that in college football right now. So it feels like he's handled things the right way. He's also added more than a dozen staff members this offseason. I mean, TCU has to have probably the biggest staff in the Big 12, and potentially like one of the biggest 15 or 20 in the entire country right now. And so they're giving him the resources to be successful. He knows that. Sonny is very self-aware. He knows the pressure is on and he's got a lot to prove, but he's got returning coordinators on both sides of the ball for the first time, I think, in his history at TCU, one of the rare times in his coaching career. So the excuses are kind of gone, and it's going to be put up or shut up mode.
Now, you may actually be at the game, because I don't know if they're going to North Carolina or is that at TCU?
Going to North Carolina. I'm 100% going to that game. Are you kidding me? Come on. It's Bill Belichick. Of course I'm going to be there.
All right. So you're going to be there. So I was just setting you up for the annoyance of watching a nationally televised game, just like you did with Deion's debut at Colorado, and nobody says anything about TCU during the broadcast. It's all going to be about Belichick, of course.
Of course. But that's a great opportunity, right? Like everybody,
Sure.
All of the pressure is on the Tar Heels. All of and TCU had that opportunity against Deion Sanders in Fort Worth when he traveled down there, and they blew it. And so the whole rocket ship of Colorado and Deion took off because of the way that they beat TCU. And it wasn't a blowout, but they just looked so much more athletic and so much hungrier than TCU did on that day. And so it's going to be the same thing. You've got a coach who, I don't know what kind of talent he can put together. He wasn't exactly great at that down the tenure at New England, and it's probably the reason he's no longer coaching in the NFL, is his insistence on being a GM. And to be a successful college football coach, you have to be a good evaluator, and you have to put together good, talented teams. But he brought in people to do that for him that have quite a bit of experience doing exactly that. So it's going to be interesting, but it's TCU gets the chance to kind of play underdog, and it's very rare that a 9-win team gets to travel to an ACC school and be kind of the lesser than team on the broadcast. But if they win, Now TCU has a chance to be the rocket ship and be getting all of the positive media attention. If they lose, nobody's going to talk about them, and it's really going to. I'll tell you what's going to set off some fireworks in Fort Worth for sure, though, because people will be people were embarrassed after Colorado, and rightfully so. If you lose to Bill Belichick, it's going to be very much a oh no, here we go again kind of feeling.